fresh diplomatic and political storm has erupted between New Delhi and Kathmandu, putting a sensitive, decades-old border dispute right back into the global spotlight. I'm Devika Devan and you're watching NewsX. Speaking in Parliament, Nepal's newly elected Prime Minister Balendra Shah has triggered a massive controversy by claiming that when it comes to border issues, both India and Nepal have encroached upon each other's territories. This development is highly important because it marks a sudden and unusual departure from Kathmandu's traditional diplomatic narrative. Typically, Nepalese leaders have in the past accused India of territorial overreach. But the 36-year-old rapper turned politician has opened a brand new can of worms by stating on television that after taking office, he learned that Nepal has also occupied Indian land in multiple places. The comment has triggered an immediate backlash back home, with opposition lawmakers demanding the remarks be expunged from the parliamentary record. Former diplomats are pointing out that there is absolutely no official records of Nepal ever encroaching on Indian soil. Nepal's foreign ministry has had to rush out to put a clarification, explaining that the Prime Minister was simply referring to localized cross-border farming and overlapping land use in an area known as no man's land due to missing or damaged boundary pillars. At the absolute center of this dispute is a remote and strategically vital Himalayan region covering three specific areas called Kalapani, Lippu Lake and Limpia-Dura. This territory sits right at the critical tri-junction connecting India, Nepal and China. To understand why this geography matters so much, we have to look at the history and the hard facts. The entire border disagreement traces its origins all the way back to the Treaty of Sugauli, which was signed in 1816 between Nepal and British India after the Anglo-Nepalese War. That treaty designated the Kali River as Nepal's western boundary. However, the treaty never clearly identified the actual geographic source of the river. And this is where the confusion begins, because Nepal claims that the river originates further west at Limpia-Dura, which would place the entire region inside its borders. India, however, maintains that the river begins at a spring near Kalapani, keeping the territory firmly within Uttarakhand. India has exercised continuous administrative control over this area since the British era. It has inherited it after independence in 1947 and treats it, of course, as a permanent part of its defense map. Today, 97% of the nearly 1,850-kilometer India-Nepal border has been mutually agreed upon and settled, but this specific northern pocket remains a highly sensitive friction point. The dispute, of course, flared up aggressively earlier this month after Kathmandu formally objected to India's decision to resume the annual Kailash Mansarovar Yatra pilgrimage for Indian tourists through the Lippu Lake Pass. Nepal sent diplomatic notes to both New Delhi and Beijing protesting trade and travel through the route. India's Ministry of External Affairs strongly rejected Kathmandu's objections, describing Nepal's stance as a unilateral, artificial enlargement of territorial claims that is completely untenable and lacks historical evidence. Now look at the key steps the Indian government has taken to secure this area, and why is it so critical for India's national security. Following the Sino-Indian War, India heavily reinforced its military and surveillance presence in the Kalapani sector. This high-altitude terrain gives the Indian Army a massive tactical advantage, offering commanding views to monitor troop and logistic movements across the highly sensitive Tibetan plateau. To cement this security, India has invested heavily in infrastructure, famously inaugurating the critical Dharchula-Lippu Lake Road, which is an 80-kilometer strategic route in Uttarakhand's Pithoragarh district that connects Ghatia Bagar to the Lippu Lake Pass on the China border. This has all been done to ensure rapid all-weather military deployment up to the forward border posts. But Prime Minister Balendra Shah's address did not stop at the encroachment claim. He has outlined a highly controversial policy shift regarding how Nepal wants to handle the dispute going forward. Balendra Shah revealed that while India has responded to Nepal's diplomatic notes by agreeing to let joint teams of historians, surveyors and experts resolve the boundary line through bilateral talks, Nepal has also actively taken up the matter with China And imagine the second country, the United Kingdom, the root of most Indian problems today. Shah has explicitly called for the UK government to step in and get involved, arguing that since the border issue dates back to the colonial era when British India left the region, London has a historical obligation to help settle the matter, as if London has ever held up any historical obligations. This call for international intervention is incredibly controversial because India has always maintained a strict policy that all outstanding boundary issues with its neighbours have to be resolved purely through bilateral dialogue without any external third-party interference. So by trying to pull China and UK into this very localized border discussion, Nepal's new leadership is actually testing New Delhi's diplomatic patience. Analysts are now warning that this aggressive posturing has the potential to severely freeze high-level contact between the two neighbours, just as diplomats were attempting to schedule key bilateral visits to Kathmandu. We will, of course, continue to monitor how New Delhi formally responds to this shifting strategy from across the border. That's all that I have for you for now. Thank you for watching.